Depression is a state of deep rest. We need deep rest when we're transitioning from one place in our lives to another. That's why people experience depression in major transitional points in their lives, like having a baby or divorce, starting a new career, going away to college. Depression is a necessary form of deep rest for the soul when you're trying to let go of where you are now and move towards your next steps. So if we think of our lives as floors or levels of a house, depression is the staircase. For example, if you are transitioning from being a child to being an adult, adolescence is the staircase. A lot of teenagers are depressed. That's because they're on the staircase. They're neither here or there. They're not a child, but they're not an adult. So if you're on that staircase, just keep going. Just keep going up the stairs, and then you're going to stop being depressed as soon as you arrive to the next level of your life. If you're going from being married to single, divorce is the staircase. And if you're on the staircase, the important part is not to stay on the staircase longer than you have to. Just keep taking one step at a time, up and up and up. As long as you keep moving and making progress to heal, you're eventually going to get to the end of that staircase, to the end of that phase. Now let me give you some examples of other staircases, of times when we can be depressed. If you're going from being an intern to a doctor, the staircase is medical school. If you're going from obese to lean, the staircase is diet and exercise. If you're going from addiction to sobriety, the staircase is making amends for those you have hurt. So if you are depressed right now, I'd like you to get a blank piece of paper and a pen, preferably colored markers. And I'm going to take you through an exercise to figure out your depression. So go ahead and pause the video and get your materials. Step 1, you're going to take your paper and you're going to fold it in thirds like this. Okay. So do you see how the middle column is twice as big as the side columns? And in the middle of your page, you're going to draw the staircase. And the staircase is going to look and feel like how your depression feels like. So what does your staircase look and feel like? And draw it the way that it feels. So for example, your staircase can look like a long slide. This is someone whose body is aging and they just slid into their depression. For someone who aged all at once, it can be a steep slide or a cliff. And for someone who aged progressively year by year, their slide can have less of an incline. Or maybe your depression feels like tall, big concrete steps because it's hard for you to get out of bed every morning. Or if your depression might even feel like knives sticking out of the ground, poking you because that's what, you have physical pain in your body every day. Step 2. Now this is where we figure out why you are depressed. On the left side of your page, draw the stage of life you were in right before you got depressed. Now, the next step is draw where you are right now on the staircase. Label your drawing or explain it in writing. Now the next step is on the right side of the page, you're going to draw the stage of life you're heading towards soon or in the near future. So see how mine was like I didn't know, I was question mark, question mark. Okay, so this step might be difficult for you too. Now don't worry if you don't know the answer. The answer is going to come to you as soon as I explain to you the next step. So just leave it blank for now. Okay, so let me show you another example. Here's someone who's going from being in a newlywed couple to being in a committed marriage. Now see how he's intertwined with his wife at the beginning of the staircase? And on the staircase, they're standing far apart and they're arguing. And before he can commit, he has to walk up his staircase. And on the left side, they were both broken or incomplete people. He completed her and she completed him. Now on the staircase, they're both growing and learning how to become their own person. They have their own wants and desires. And on the right side of the page, they're working as a family to raise children. So it takes a village to raise children, so they both have to learn to not just be in relationship with themselves and each other, but also their relatives, their children's schools, the community, their friends, and eventually the world. And on the left side of the page, they were like two crippled people tied together at the hip. They could only feed each other, gaze into each other's eyes. But that's not functional, and you can't build anything substantial in your life when you're extremely self-serving. But on the right side of the page, they've become a team, a dynamic duo who can succeed at life, finances, and raising a family. So the two of them, plus their entire network of friends, plus being a meaningful part of the world, equals infinity. Okay, so if this is you, all you have on your paper right now is newlyweds, fighting on the staircase, and committed marriage. You haven't filled out all of the details yet. That's fine. Wait until I explain this next step, and then you'll be able to fill in the details. So, I'm calling this your vision map, this thing that you're making, because it's a map of your vision of your life right now. And every time your life changes, you make another vision map. And it helps you to get from where you are now to where you want to go next. It's kind of like a spiritual GPS. So to explain this next step, let me tell you the story behind my vision map for depression. My whole life, I've had this intuitive gift to understand what someone's dream is and to map it out in detail for them. And I'd go to wealthy CEOs and I'd charge them thousands of dollars to solve their problems. And then when I had the money, I'd go back to my poor friends who were homeless and we'd celebrate. We'd go out and eat lunch because I have all this cash. Or I'd buy them a new tent. And then we'd all live by the river. So we lived this perfect life in Hawaii. And all my life, I was just stoked riding my bicycle. I made money from the rich and I gave to the poor. And it was an easy life because I could always rely on being super smart whenever I just needed some money. So one day, I got this full scholarship to go to Harvard grad school, and I went, and then I realized, it was kind of a little bit shocking because I realized even at Harvard, where you had the best people from every country, even among that crowd, I was incredibly unique, and I was still considered really smart even among the smart people. So I was like, wow, what have I been doing with my life? You know, like, I have this incredible gift. I could contribute something really positive to humanity. And all I'm really doing is riding my bike and hanging out with my homeless friends. You know, and one day when I was at Harvard, one of my homeless friends died. And I realized that one by one, each one of them is going to die. Even if they die in my arms, I can't do anything to really help them. Because I'm not working to change the injustice that's happening in society that caused the conditions that made them die so young. So I can make them temporarily happy by buying them food and tents, you know, or I could stop riding my bike, stop being happy, stop playing around, and just start getting serious about using my intelligence to do something better for society. So I went through a big, long depression because I couldn't be happy anymore. I couldn't be on the bottom of that staircase where I was happy. I had to start being depressed and climbing up that staircase, bearing down on the meaning behind why I had this gift, and I had to start going up. And anytime you're climbing a staircase, you're transitioning from one point in your life to another, you're going to be depressed because your soul needs that deep rest to understand, what am I really doing in my life? I'm transitioning right now. I'm transitioning from one phase of my life to another. And that's good. It's good that I was depressed because I had to come to that realization. And as I'm climbing my staircase of depression, my depression is melting away everything on the surface that makes me happy, so that my raw ambition, which was frustratingly buried deep inside of me, could emerge and motivate me to change my loser lifestyle. And there's a reason why you're depressed. It's preparing you for the next evolution or stage in your life. And when you realize this, you can fill out the details of your vision map. So go ahead, try to do this next step of your vision map, and pause the video in order to do that. Okay, the next step is you're going to draw a line at the end of your staircase right before you arrive at the next stage of your life. Now, this is the threshold. This is what separates your depression from fulfilling your current mission in your life. And when you cross this threshold, your depression ends and you get to move on to the next evolution of yourself and enter a new phase of your life. And this threshold is called unfinished business. So go ahead and label it unfinished business. Now, your unfinished business is everything you're already doing involuntarily on your staircase. And it's probably making you miserable, but you know what? It's also probably really good for you. So if you are an addict, getting sober, making amends to people who you hurt sucks, but it's good for you. That's your unfinished business, and you have to finish it in order to cross the threshold to sobriety. Now, if you're a young couple trying to start a family and you're arguing, you're trying to show this person who you really are, not this fantasy person that they thought they married, well, that's good for you. Your unfinished business is to finish completing who you are before you start raising a child. Because if you're complete and whole, you're going to raise a complete and whole child. So how are you going to figure out what this last step is? Okay, so let's go through one more example and you're going to understand how to do it. Let's look at Ginger's vision map. Now, on the left side of her page, she wrote, "Before I became depressed, I was 75 years old, healthy and independent." And on her staircase, she wrote, "Now I'm 81, unstable on my feet and dependent on my bipolar daughter to take care of me." So what's the next stage in Ginger's life? And for her, because she knows she's declining rapidly, she wrote, "Going to heaven, seeing God, my mother, and my cats who have passed before me." So in other words, she's preparing herself to die or to cross into the light. So Ginger's depressed. Now look at this threshold here at the end of her staircase. In order for her to get out of depression, what's her unfinished business? Now, Ginger's daughter is bipolar. And sometimes we go into decline or we get cancer just because our soul needs to teach someone else how to love. Ginger probably could have died a little earlier in her life and skipped the depression. She could have died right at the beginning of the staircase. She didn't have to go through the staircase and then die later. But her soul chose to go through the depression and climb the staircase because her daughter is bipolar. And by staying on this staircase of aging and depression, Ginger's noticing that because her daughter has to take care of her, her daughter's learning how to care for someone besides just herself. Her daughter's less angry, more patient, because she doesn't have a choice. I mean, when you're caring for someone with dementia, you have to let things go and not be such a control freak. In other words, Ginger's unfinished business is to help her daughter heal from being bipolar. And one way that Ginger's helping her daughter heal from being bipolar is by having dementia, to force her daughter to care for her. And like I said before, you're probably already doing this final step. It's just making you depressed. So how can you make that final step go faster so that you can get out of your depression? For Ginger, it's to give her daughter her inheritance early. And inheritance is not just money. Inheritance is also emotional and spiritual. And Ginger needs to bless her daughter with the things that will help her heal from being bipolar, like patience, letting things go, being responsible for other people besides herself. So I suggested to Ginger, I said, why not, tell your daughter every day, today I'm blessing you with patience. And the next day, tell her, I'm blessing you with the ability to let things go. And then the next day, say, I'm blessed because you're choosing to be responsible for yourself and others. And it doesn't matter if her daughter is acting up, if her daughter's throwing a tantrum or cycling or going through a mood, Ginger will just keep blessing her. And every time she blesses her daughter, she takes another step up her staircase. And even after Ginger crosses her threshold, that doesn't mean that she's going to die immediately. She could stay on top of that threshold, on top of the staircase, another 10 years, living in peace, ready to die, but she doesn't have to be depressed on that staircase. So what's your step 5, your final step? What is your unfinished business? And here's a hint. It's something you're already doing. Might also be very boring and very depressing to do it. But as soon as you figure out what it is, how can you take it up a notch? Do the same thing but even more just to make the staircase go faster. Like just get through the staircase. Climb it, get it over with. Move on to the next level of your life. So write your comments in this to this video below, and I'm going to give you feedback. Thanks for watching this video.